Close your eyes for a moment. Try to remember being 4 years old, not a story someone told you, not a photograph you've seen 100 times, an actual memory, something you felt, something you smelled, something that happened to you in a specific place on a specific day. Most people can't do it. Not because nothing happened. You lived thousands of days before the age of 7. You learned to walk, to talk, to fear, to love. You had favorite foods, favorite places, and favorite people. You cried for reasons you understood completely at the time. You laughed at things that made perfect sense to you. You experienced more genuine firsts in those years than you will in any other period of your life. And almost none of it is there. Right now, at this exact moment, your brain is actively storing memories. Every conversation, every face, every feeling you've had today is being processed, consolidated, and preserved. You will be able to recall parts of this day years from now. But go back far enough, and there's almost nothing. Not because you had a bad childhood, not because nothing mattered, not because those years were less real than the ones that came after. Your brain was working perfectly. It was recording everything. It just wasn't recording it for you. So where did it go? Thousands of days, thousands of moments. A version of you that existed, that felt things deeply, that had opinions and preferences and fears that were entirely real. Gone. And the part that makes this genuinely unsettling is this. Science still doesn't have a complete answer for why. Before we go further, we need to be honest about what we actually know here and what we don't. We know the phenomenon is real and universal. It happens to every human being on Earth, regardless of culture, language, or upbringing. Researchers call it childhood amnesia, and it is not a disorder. It is not a symptom. It is a feature of being human. We know it involves the hippocampus, the structure deep in the brain responsible for converting experience into long-term memory. And we know the amnesia ends somewhere between the ages of 7 and 10, after which memories begin to persist in the way adults recognize. What we do not know is exactly why the early years are so systematically inaccessible. There are hypotheses, strong ones, supported by decades of research. But neuroscience has no single settled explanation for why the person you were at 3 years old is a stranger to the person you are today. That uncertainty is not a gap in the science. It is the science. A memory is not a recording. This is the first thing to understand. Every time you remember something, your brain is not playing back a stored file. It is actively rebuilding the experience from fragments, filling in the gaps, reassembling scattered pieces into something that feels whole and continuous. Memory is a reconstruction, not a retrieval. And every reconstruction changes the original slightly. Adult memory works this way. Childhood memory works this way too. The difference is in what gets stored in the first place, and in what format. Most people assume childhood amnesia means the memories were never formed, that a young brain simply wasn't capable of encoding experience at all. That is wrong. Children form memories constantly and intensely. Studies show that toddlers can retain specific episodic memories for months. Infants, as young as 6 months, demonstrate clear signs of recognition memory. A 3-year-old can remember a visit to a specific place weeks later in remarkable detail. The brain is recording, actively, continuously, from the very beginning of life. The problem is not formation, the problem is retrieval. And the problem most researchers now believe is language. Memory in adults is fundamentally verbal. We encode experience in language. We narrate what happens to us. We give events a beginning, a middle, and an end. We tell ourselves the story of what occurred. That narrative structure is what makes a memory retrievable years later. It gives the brain a handle to grab onto. A 2-year-old does not have that system yet. Experience at that age is encoded primarily in sensation, in emotion, in pure physical and sensory feeling, but not in the verbal and narrative framework that adult memory depends on for retrieval. When language develops, when the brain reorganizes itself around verbal and symbolic thought, those pre-verbal memories become inaccessible, not erased, not destroyed, inaccessible, stored in a format that the developed adult brain can no longer read. You still have them, somewhere. You just cannot open the file. There is a second hypothesis that runs alongside the language theory, and the two are not mutually exclusive. The hippocampus, the brain's primary memory consolidation structure, is one of the last regions to reach full maturity. In early childhood, it is in a state of rapid development, generating new neurons at a pace it will never sustain again in adult life. This process is called neurogenesis, and it is extraordinary, but it comes at a cost. New neurons integrating into existing circuits disrupt the connections that were holding earlier experiences in place. The infrastructure of early memory is continuously overwritten by the brain's own growth. The architecture is being built while the building is already being used. The brain is not losing memories through neglect. It is building itself, and the construction disturbs everything that was stored before the foundations were finished. Not everything disappears. Procedural memory, how to walk, how to hold a spoon, how to swim, how to navigate a familiar space, survives completely intact. Your body remembers what your conscious mind cannot access. Every physical skill you learned before the age of 7 is still there, operating without any awareness on your part. Emotional memory survives in a different and stranger form. You may not remember the specific moment you first learned to fear a particular thing, a dog, a loud sound, a certain kind of silence, but the fear itself is there, fully intact, encoded in your nervous system and operating every day without your knowledge or permission. And fragments survive, isolated images, disconnected sensations, impressions without any context or narrative attached to them. A particular quality of light, a smell that feels significant without explanation, a feeling of warmth or unease that arrives without a story to explain it. Those are not false memories. They are the edges of real ones, the parts that survived the reconstruction. It is tempting to conclude from all of this that childhood amnesia is a failure, a flaw in the developing brain that robs us of something we should have been able to keep. That conclusion is too simple. A brain that attempted to permanently store every experience from the moment of birth would be a brain that collapsed under the weight of its own input before it ever learned to function. The forgetting may not be a malfunction. Childhood may be precisely the period when the brain needs to build its fundamental architecture, its language systems, its emotional regulation, its capacity for abstract thought, without the accumulated burden of everything that came before. What looks like forgetting may be necessary construction. The memories didn't disappear because they didn't matter. They disappeared because building you required the space. Somewhere in the first years of your life, there is a version of you that no longer exists anywhere. Not in photographs, not in the stories people tell about you, not in anyone else's memory. Only in you, in your body. In your fears, in your comforts, and your instincts and your reflexes, in the things that feel familiar without reason, and the things that feel threatening without explanation. That version of you shaped everything that came after. Every preference, every fear, every capacity you have. And you will never be able to ask it what it remembers. It's unsettling to think that the person you were before you became yourself is completely inaccessible to the person you are now, that the most formative years of your existence left almost no conscious trace. We are not who we remember being. We are also everything we've already forgotten. You just learned what happens to the memories your brain couldn't keep. Next, why do you sometimes know you've forgotten something but can't remember what it was? Your brain is monitoring its own memory right now, watching itself from the inside, and it's doing it without telling you.